I'll bring this meeting to order for the full authority meeting of August 11th. Board members, staff, guests, and members of the public are reminded that the full authority meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the authority's website along with the official written minutes. As such, comments and opinions expressed may be published and any comments expressed by individual board members, guests, or general public are their own and do not represent the opinions or comments of the full authority and or Kettle Creek Conservation Authority Board of Directors. This recorded video of the full authority meeting is not considered the official record and of that meeting. The official record of the full authority shall consist solely of the minutes approved by the full authority. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. First off is minutes for the June 16th full authority meeting. Any errors or omissions?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, can we do an official roll call before we get started?
Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Dennis Kravitz.
Here.
Dominique Giguère.
Here.
Stephen Harvey.
Here.
Jim Herbert. Grant Jones.
Here.
Bill Mackey.
Here.
Steve Peters.
Here.
Elizabeth Pelosa. Allison Warwick.
Here.
Ralph Winfield.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have 8 members of 10 present today.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, now we'll deal with the minutes of the June 16th meeting. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I have a motion to adopt?
Peters.
Seconder?
Mackey.
Yeah, Elizabeth, can you call the vote, please?
Kravitz.
Yes.
Giguère.
Yes.
Harvey.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Warwick.
Yes.
Winfield.
Yes.
And the motion passes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go down to matters arising. First report, July-August media report from Betsy. Welcome, Betsy.
Just a sample of some of the social media posts since our June meeting. Interestingly enough, the biggest reach for any of the posts was the Gypsy Moth post, which had around 10,000 basically interactions. Next slide, Jessica. We also received a lot of coverage of the Ducks Unlimited funding announcement that was held at our office right before our last meeting. Next slide. As well as we launched the Evans Sisters Water Trail. So we had some uptake from local media on that, as well as our articles featuring camping for the July 1st long weekend, as well as the Port Stanley Blue flag raising.
Mr. Chair, if you like, I'll just go right into project tracking. Again, an eventful summer. Betsy was successful in getting $36,000 from the Great Lakes Local Action Fund to create wetlands and do some treatments of Phragmites and the plantings of tall grass prairies. We've had a couple events now from the Youth Corps, planting wildflower pugs and shrubbery in and around the watershed. So it's nice to have that Youth Corps active again, practicing social distancing. And we had 2 community events the same way. We're able to hold these once gathering limits would allow. And so that was nice to see. The campgrounds have been extremely busy, both in day use and in camping at 100% capacity every weekend. And of note from the coordinators, some of the weeks seem as busy as the weekends. The Evans Sisters Water Trail was launched. It's a 2.8 kilometer canoe and kayak trail. If any of the members are interested in doing it, we can arrange for a canoe or kayak so you can take that out. It's a nice view, interesting view of the Dalewood Reservoir. And we continue with improvements of that Dalewood Reservoir. Staff have added 5 new rest benches and replaced 3 existing benches, and have been busy installing deck boards and boardwalks and some railing systems throughout that system as well. And I'll turn it over now, unless there's any questions, to Jennifer for the watershed conditions report.
Any questions for Elizabeth? Oh, go ahead, Jen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had it's been an interesting summer so far with how the watershed is responding to, low water conditions, and then crazy rainy event at the end of July Port Stanley definitely got quite a bit of rain, over 119 millimeters at some stations that was recorded. So definitely an interesting event. Lake Erie water levels have been, they were consistently dropping for quite a while, but that rain event brought them back up a little bit closer to the 2020, 2019 levels, but they should continue to drop again as time goes on. We are working with the Port Stanley flood mapping project that is underway. We should be doing the field work in the next week or so for that. We were lucky to be involved in saving some more turtles again this year from some nests that were in danger of being destroyed. So we take them to the Upper Thames, where the Species at Risk Biology program is able to incubate those eggs, and we'll release them back into the watershed in the fall after they've hatched.
Okay. Anything else? Any questions for Jen? Seeing none, we'll move on to Peacekeeper Park.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, go ahead.
Steve Peters here, regarding the watershed conditions report. I noticed a lot of, and you made reference to it in the report when I was reading it, about all the trees, etc. But I noticed at the Dalewood Dam, like a huge clog up of trees and limbs and etc. etc. And I was just curious, do we deal with that, or do we just hope that we get another high water and it all goes over the dam? Because I saw some real ugly photos of the harbor in Port Stanley with some of the pieces of timber that came down the creek. And then my only other comment would be, I noticed that the algae bloom has been sort of growing again up at Dalewood, and is that of any concern? So those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So to Steve through the chair, as far as the debris buildup at the Dalewood Dam, we are working to get that removed. We have some winches and some tools that we use to remove that debris accumulation upstream of the dam and take it away to another, take it off the dam onto the side. So we will be dealing with that. And as far as algae up, like in the reservoir, like the reservoir tends to be pretty turbid and murky at the best of times. The algae levels change depending on the day, the wind, the temperature, what's happening. And it does change quite quickly as to if the water is flushing through the system or if it's just sitting in the reservoir. So far, it hasn't really been that big an issue. And as well in the Great Lakes, the forecast for the Lake Erie algae bloom has been quite low according to the forecast that we've been seeing. So you keep an eye on it, but it's just, a seasonal event.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'll move on to Peacekeeper Park update. Elizabeth?
Mr. Chair, I've been working with representatives of Peacekeeper Park, and they have agreed that they will be removing the Path of Honor from Lake Whitaker. And we're working together to erect a stone at the Lake Whitaker site that will basically honor the volunteer efforts that have been put into Peacekeeper Park at the Lake Whitaker site over the years. In the future, I'll bring back the exact wording that will be on that rock, but I think it's a resolution that is acceptable both to Peacekeeper Park and to KCCA staff. Peacekeeper Park has been working throughout the summer to begin to clear some of their belongings off the site, and we're reading regularly with them. They're also working with Camp Bell to possibly take some of the structures in the near future as well. So I think things are progressing.
That's good to hear. Any questions for Elizabeth? Seeing none, we'll move on to item E, and DMP funding. Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick update with the National Disaster Mitigation Program funding that we secured for doing the updated floodplain mapping project in Port Stanley. That we were able to secure 50% of the total budget, which is $9,250. Ontario officially entered into the bilateral contribution agreement with Canada on June 28th. And so that provides formal federal approval for that project. However, the next step is that we have to now enter into the transfer payment agreement process with Ontario. Those agreements are expected sometime in August. And then after signing by KCCA, they will be executed by the province approximately 1 month after signing. So to take advantage of the conditions in August and the summer conditions where we're able to get some field work done, we're recommending that floodplain mapping project in Port Stanley proceed ahead of the signing of the provincial transfer payment agreement, knowing that that agreement is coming in the future.
Thanks, Jen. Any questions, concerns?
Kravitz, I'd like to move that recommendation.
Okay, we have a mover for the recommendation. Seconder?
Warwick.
Warwick seconds. So the recommendation that the Riverine flood mapping, plain mapping Port Stanley project proceed ahead of the signing of the provincial transfer payment agreement. Any further discussion? And call the vote, please, Elizabeth.
Kravitz,
Yes.
Jaguar,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Warwick,
Yes.
Winfield.
Yes.
And
that motion passes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And we have a recommendation that matters arising from A through E be received. Mover and seconder, please.
I can move that, Grant. Harvey?
Seconder, please.
Mackey?
Mackey seconds. Call the vote, please, Elizabeth.
Kravitz,
Yes.
Jaguar,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Warwick,
Yes.
Winfield.
Yes.
And that motion passes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We go down to correspondence. Is there anything there that anybody would like to highlight? Anything from your end, Elizabeth?
Mr. Chair, I just have one piece of correspondence to add, and that's an invitation to the Middlesex County Wardens Charity Golf Tournament on Thursday, September the 16th, 2021. If any members are interested in that information, I can forward it out by email. Just let me know.
Okay, thank you. There's nothing else to highlight. Motion for correspondence to be received.
I would so move. Ralph.
Ralph,
Harvey,
Harvey seconds. Call the vote, please, Elizabeth.
Kravitz,
Yes.
Jagger,
Yes.
Harvey,
yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Warwick,
Yes.
Winfield.
yes,
And that motion passes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Move on to statement of revenue and expense. Kathleen, you want to present?
Sorry about that, Mr. Chair. I will
That's all
take any, it's just business as usual. If there's any questions, please feel free to ask.
Don't see any questions. Do you need a resolution to receive and file, Elizabeth?
Please.
Or just, okay. So mover and seconder to receive and file, please.
Warwick.
I think that was Allison.
Kravitz,
Peters,
Peters, seconds. Call the vote, please, Elizabeth.
Kravitz,
yes.
Jagger,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Peters,
yes.
Warwick,
Yes.
Winfield.
yes,
And that motion passes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We'll move down to new business. Item A, draft budget. Elizabeth, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, as part of the City of London's 4-year budget process, they do ask their outside boards and commissions to submit their board-approved budgets they wanted to draft by today and a board-approved budget by August 24th. As you recall, we already submitted our 4-year budget plan to the City of London, which included a 3% increase every year. I have talked to the City of London staff, and they are understanding that our budget process is a little bit different. And so what I'm suggesting is that we submit the City of London budget submission at this time unchanged from the 3%. That doesn't preclude us from continuing to refine that as part of our own internal budget processes and the final budget approval for our budget later in February. So there's a number of things that I think still need to be discussed at the board level, and I want to take the time to do that with some wholesome discussion with you. So what I am asking is that we do approve that submission to the City of London, keeping with the 3%, with the anticipation that staff will continue to work through our internal budget processes for the feasibility of refining that levy to see if we can't get it down from the 3%. So the board approved budget submission to the City of London would occur on August 24th. Then we would look at October 6th of having the executive committee meet to discuss 2022 salary proposals and the GM performance appraisal. October 20th at the full authority, we'd look at the strategic work plans and draft levy projections, and then continue to refine them in November. Look at the capital budget in December, the December meeting, and a final review of the budget and actuals on February 9th with final approval of the budget on February 23rd. And if I can just have the next slide. There's a lot going on as we head into the fall, not just with budget, but also with the CA Act revisions and the regulations that we talked about in June, where once those regulations are passed, we'll enter that transition period. So Conservation Ontario and the CAs are already working towards developing a work plan and timeline of how we look at getting that inventory of programs and services out to our member municipalities, and then transitioning to MOUs and agreements to have those in place by January 1st, 2023. So that will be working in the background as well in that budget timeline. But I'm not at the stage yet to present a defined timeline of how we move through that transition period. I hope that that's something that we can present to you at the September meeting, but that will be working in conjunction with that budget process as well. So today, I think the motion that's before you is that the draft 2022 budget review and approval timeline be approved, and further that we submit a 3% levy increase to the City of London at this time for 2022 and 2023 budget submission, and further that staff continue to evaluate the feasibility of any further levy reduction for 2022 and 23 for consideration and discussion during KCCA's 2022 budget review and approval process.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Questions for Elizabeth?
Kravitz, I'd just like to make a little bit of a comment, please.
Yep, go ahead.
This is a little bit of the tail wagging the dog situation. The City of London, they have a 4% increase that they're looking at in 2022, and yet they're expecting all the outside boards to come in under that to help lower their budget. It's a different process that unfortunately that we are following, but it's something that this bothers me a little bit, having to, you know, just make these fictitious predictions for the City of London. And it's interrupting our own budget process, timing and everything. So it's something we should maybe have a talk with the City of London. Just a recommendation. I don't know if we can do anything to change this or this in the future. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I tend to agree, Dennis. It kind of doesn't sit well with me as well. I don't think we do anything about it this year, but it's something to sit down and tell them that, listen, you, just because you say jump, we don't have to say how high. Anyway, any other comments? Okay, the recommendations before you. Could I have a mover and seconder, please?
I'd so move, Ralph.
Warwick,
Warwick seconds. Call any further discussion? We'll call the vote, please, Elizabeth.
Kravitz,
Yes.
Jiguer,
yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Warwick,
Yes.
Winfield.
Yes.
And that motion passes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And we'll move down to our final item for open session, planning regulations report. Welcome, Joe.
Mr. Chair, the activity summary report since the last meeting was provided in the advanced packages. We're just looking for the board to receive the report, but I'm happy to answer any questions if any of the members have any.
Questions for Joe?
Peters,
Go ahead, Steve.
just curious, the Sunset Road Stormwater Management Pond, is that the former Ford site?
Correct, yes.
Wow. So will that have an impact on changing any flow into Dodd Creek then, long term?
No, so under the Ministry Table 1 guidelines for stormwater, they have to provide a stormwater management control plan that will have the same or better level of water going in Dodds Creek. So it's designed to withhold back any on-site flows and control it and release it slowly back into the system. So we wouldn't see an increase of flows from what the pre-existing conditions were. So that stormwater management pond went through a C of A with the MOE, but because of its outlet falls within the Conservation Authority regulations, we've permitted the construction works associated with that pond.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Joe? Seeing none, I have a recommendation that the June 2021 Planning and Regulations report be received. Mover and seconder, please.
Sorry, if I may clarify, Mr. Chair, I believe you said June. We're looking at the July and August report.
Oh,
For clarification.
typo. Mover and seconder, please.
Harvey,
Peters,
Peters, Harvey and Peters. Call the vote, please. Elizabeth?
On the motion, Kravitz,
Yes.
Jiguer,
yes,
Harvey,
yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Peters,
yes.
Warwick,
yes,
Winfield.
yes,
And that motion passes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So a motion to go into closed session, please.
Harvey,
Yep.
Call the vote, please. Elizabeth?
On the motion, Kravitz,
Yes.
Jiguer,
yes.
Harvey,
yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Warwick,
yes.
Winfield.
yes.
That motion passes, Mr. Chair.